All right, good morning. How's everyone doing today? Good. Sweet. All right, early Saturday morning. I'm not usually up at this hour, so bear with me. All right, so, we're here to talk about this concept of coalition building, solidarity, and they seem like lofty things. There are these concepts that within Palestine organizing until recently, I feel like we've idealized in the movement for Palestinian justice and liberation. There are these fantasies that everyone will come together, regardless of their racial, ethnic, age, gender orientation, academic, or socioeconomic background, and we're all going to come together for this common cause of uniting for justice. And in many settings, this seems really difficult, maybe even unrealistic to attain, due to simply just barriers that exist in building relationships necessary to maintain true solidarity among different communities. So it's no surprise then that the most successful cross-community coalitions have been built on university campuses, and especially so at the University of California, which has led the nation in the growing movement to divest from corporations that profit from the ongoing Israeli occupation of Palestine. From UC San Diego mobilizing its coalitions over the course of a 4-year campaign to divestment, to UCLA tackling attempted suppression of activism by both campus and City of Los Angeles officials, to my own campus at UC Riverside, gathering endorsements for divestment from over 70 student organizations. The building of relationships with communities organizing for causes other than Palestine has proven to be not only ideal, but essential in progressing our movement. And in true activist fashion, university campuses across the country have taken note and begun building their own relationships with cross-community organizations on their respective campuses. And it's now become an expected norm. So, long story short, this is great. We're meeting other organizations, we're meeting other communities, we're stepping outside of our bubble and we're seeing, hey, Palestine is beyond what we think it is, and Palestine affects so many other people, and we can benefit from these relationships. So in the UC system specifically, this expectation has served purposes not only for Palestine solidarity organizations, but for its ally organizations as well, in movements to divest from corporations profiting from fossil fuels, as well as from corporations profiting from mass incarceration and private prison labor. SJP has found kindred spirits in African student unions jointly calling for the end of exploitation and mass sterilization of Ethiopian asylum seekers in Israel, as well as with Latino organizations like MECHA, who call for the divestment of student funds from corporations using those same funds to construct the apartheid wall in Palestine, as well as the wall on the US-Mexico border. So these relationships have not only allowed Palestine solidarity organizations like SJPs to build their circle of support, but it's also allowed SJP to do something that wasn't really expected of them in the beginning, to begin taking steps to tackle microaggressions and the oppressions within our own circles, such as our internalized patriarchy, racism, Islamophobia, homophobia, and classism. And so for the first time, since the flagship SJP chapter was formed at UC Berkeley in 2004, SJPs and other similar university organizations have been able to expand their scope of justice beyond Palestine liberation. It's become clear that justice for one is not true justice without universal justice. Not only because ideologically we should strive for justice for communities outside of our own, but because several of these struggles that we advocate for cross over. The marginalization of women in all communities is layered with the marginalization of people of color, is layered with the marginalization of queer communities, is layered with the marginalization of neuroatypical individuals, and so on and so forth. These forms of oppression can't be looked at individually, as doing so disregards the fact that many of us can't be freed from one aspect of our oppression without combating another, a concept that we know in the social justice circle as intersectionality. So the struggle, of course, even with these coalition-savvy university organizations, is to make these relationships meaningful, meaning that coalition and solidarity are two-way streets, and require the allyship of SJPs to other movements as well. Some examples of such meaningful relationships have been the solidarity of SJP at UC San Diego with African student organizations following an event on campus known as the Compton Cookout, in which an on-campus fraternity staged and planned a ghetto-themed party, as well as the solidarity shown between Palestine solidarity organizations worldwide with the residents of Ferguson, Missouri this past month. We're not there yet. We have not reached this ideal, perfect organization setting in which we all go hand in hand and work two ways. But progress has been made. Our ultimate goal in Palestine organizing, whether it be on university campuses or in the quote-unquote real world, is to ideally have these relationships become as natural as kinship. After all, we are united for the betterment of each of our respective communities and for the betterment of the global community in which we live. These examples are not to be taken as tokens for our so-called solidarity, but rather standards to aim for, carefully and deliberately, with the intention of universal liberation guiding us all to this goal. So with that being said, I want to hand it off to my colleague, Gabe Schiavone, who's going to discuss a more specific example of this solidarity in real life.